Hello everybody and welcome back to Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, the Lost Planeswalker, and today we're doing a Baylen the Haymaker commander deck. This will probably be my last commander deck I'm doing for bloomburrow, as Duskmourn is starting up, and if you're watching this video, hey, check out my Duskmourn content. I just did a what we know so far about this set, and if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. But Baylen the Haymaker, very interesting commander. Let's dive right in and see how this guy works. So, red, green, and a white for Anaya, we have a Ledger Creature Rabbit Warrior that cares all about tokens. Tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any one color. Tap 3 untapped tokens you control, draw a card, and tap 4 untapped tokens you control, put 3+1/+1 counters on Baylen the Haymaker, it gains trample until end of turn. So interestingly here, those counters stay on Baylen, but the trample is temporary. There's a period there at the end of Haymaker before it says it gains trample. So you are making this commander bigger permanently, which is so cool. At first, I didn't really think much of Baylen, but I started checking out some other people's decks and saw just how crazy this commander is going to get. So how is this deck going to revolve? Obviously, we're going to create a lot of tokens, so we're going to look at token creation, then we're going to look at some cards that care about you creating or having a ton of tokens, and then finally, let's talk about that good stuff. So looking at the token creation, we're going to start with mass token creation here with March of the Multitudes, Scoot Swarm, and Tempt with Vengeance. So March of the Multitudes, very easy card, X green, white, white instant with Convoke. Create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. So tapping all of our tokens, we can convoke out the spell for a very big cost because there's an X in the cost, meaning we can make 10, 20, 30, who knows how many tokens you create based on how many you have on the board. It's a very fun card, makes a bunch of things with lifelink, and honestly, the most busted thing about Baylen is that Baylen is tapping these tokens. It's not giving them tap abilities, meaning that if you were to play this March of the Multitudes, make 5 creatures, you could instantly activate Baylen's first and second or last ability with those tokens because Baylen is going to tap them. Very strong effect. That's what makes Urza, Lord High Artificer, just as strong as it is. So next card here is Scoot Swarm, one of the best mass token creation cards. 2 and a green creature insect with landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead, meaning that this is just going to double after you hit that 6 land drop again and again and again, just getting out of hand very, very quickly. And then Tempt with Vengeance is a card I haven't really seen before, but X and a red sorcery, tempting offer, create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste. Each opponent may create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste, and for each opponent who does, you create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste. So if you make 5 or pay X equal to 5, and all of your opponents decide to make them, you get 20 tokens. Very cool card. Obviously here, Baylen is going to be really good. You can attack one opponent to knock him out of the game, or just use him to buff up your commander. So next up, I want to talk about some comboing cards with token creation, because obviously there's a lot of good stuff. This first card isn't, but the other two are. We have Divine Visitation, Rosie Cotton of South Lane, and Scurry Oak. Divine Visitation is just a really great card in any token creation deck. But 3 white, white enchantment. If one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance are created instead. So instead of making a 1/1, make a 4/4 with flying and vigilance. Count me in. This is a very good card. We just got reprinted, but it's still around $7-8, so that's pretty impressive there. But the other two cards that combo off with each other, we have Rosie, Cotton of South Lane, and Scurry Oak. So Rosie says, when it enters, create a food token, and whenever you create a token, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control, other than Rosie. And Scurry Oak has Evolve on it, and whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Scurry Oak, you create that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. So Rosie comes in, you make a food. When she sees the food being made, she puts a counter on Scurry Oak. Scurry Oak then sees a counter being placed on it, makes a squirrel, and this loops infinitely, getting you infinite tokens, letting you do whatever you want to do with Baylen here, whether you want to make infinite mana, draw infinite cards, or make this infinitely big. But it's very fun. And then lastly, we have passive token creation. So this is just going to be cards you want on the battlefield, and as you go, it's going to make a token here or there that'll just buff up your entire board over time. So we have Peregrine Took, Queen, Alina of Root Arch, or Tireless Provisioner. So Peregrine Took, 2 and a green, legendary creature, halfling citizen. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead. You can sacrifice 3 food to draw a card. Now, whether you're going to use that food to gain life or sack it to gain card draw here, you're just going to get a bunch of food as well that you can tap with Baylen. Queen Alina here has its power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control, and if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. So basically, anytime we create one or more tokens, we're going to create an additional one with the queen. And then Tireless Provisioner, staple card, 2 and a green creature, elf scout with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, create a food token or a treasure token. Honestly, they both might be just as powerful in this deck because Baylen can tap them for mana, so you can get enough mana, but the food kind of has some additional value, so I'd probably opt for the food here. But let's look at the rest of those creatures that create tokens here with Anemia Bakal, Thousand Moon, Arasta of the Endless Web, Artifact Mutation, Aura Mutation, Caretaker's Talent, Elsbeth, Sun's Champion, Farmer Cotton, Finale of Glory, For the Common Good, Gilded Goose, Hop to It, Intrepid Rabbit, Jacked Rabbit, Many Partings, Oketra's Monument, Scepter of Celebration, Springheart Antuco, Tendershoot Dryad, Warren War Leader, Wildfire Awakener, and Xenagos the Reveler. Now, next up is going to be cards that care about having or creating tokens, but before we get there, I just want to say if you aren't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so, and please leave a like. If you watch this, you got to this point, please leave a like. It would mean so much to me and really help me out. So let's look straight at creating tokens, some cards that are going to give us some value based on when we create tokens. So we have Agate Instigator, Benny Brock's Zoologist, and Primal Vigor. Agate Instigator is 1 in red creature, lizard rogue with offspring for 1 in red, and whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. So for 4 mana, you get 2 creatures, and each of them will deal a damage when something comes in, which I really like. I think this card is really solid on its own, but being able to get an additional trigger for just paying 2 additional mana every time seems really good. Benny Brock's Zoologist, 3 and a white, ledger creature elf druid with Convoke, which is great for us. We can just use our tokens to cast this. And then at the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, draw a card. There's ways in which you're going to create tokens on everybody's turn, like with Tendershoot Dryad. So Benny Brock's here is awesome. Going to give you a ton of card advantage just for having it on the board. And Primal Vigor, 4 and a green enchantment. If 1 or more tokens would be put onto the battlefield, twice that many of those tokens are put on the battlefield instead. And if 1 or more +1/+1 counters are placed on a creature, twice that many +1/+1 counters are placed on a creature instead. So notably here, Primal Vigor is an effect that affects everybody's board state, not just your own. But really recently, tokens have become so popular that even the most inexpensive token doubling effects that we've just got printed over and over again are not inexpensive. I mean, $50 plus. It's ridiculous. I mean, Parallel Lives is $40. You know, Mondrak is $45. It's just not great right now. I mean, if you can afford them, get them because they're good. But I put all of that in the sideboard. So I think, while Primal Vigor has its drawback, I think for the price, you just can't beat it. And then next up, we're going to look at what having some tokens are going to give us some great value here. So we have Battle Hymn, Huatli, Radiant Champion, and Jetmir Nexus of Revels. So Battle Hymn here is an instant for 2 mana that says add a red to your mana pool for each creature you control. I think that this is a staple card. It's only $1. It's a common. There are so many decks that would just benefit so greatly by having this in there, and I just think more people should play it. We also have Huatli Radiant Champion, which is a Planeswalker I don't think I've ever personally played, but I actually really want to. 2 green and a white, legendary Planeswalker Huatli. +1, put a loyalty counter on Huatli Radiant Champion for each creature you control, which is insane. -1, target creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control, which is also just insane. It works especially good with our commander if we're going to buff it up and give it trample. And then -8, you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. This is a really neat Planeswalker I knew nothing about, and I'm going to start playing in some of my decks because it seems really powerful. And then Jetmir Nexus of Revels, 1 red, green, and a white legendary creature cat demon. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample as long as you control 6 or more creatures. And creatures you control get +1/+0 and have double strike as long as you control 9 or more creatures. It's going to be pretty easy for us to have 9 or more creatures in this deck. So I think getting all 3 of those triggers is going to be amazing, and it's just going to buff up our entire team. Jetmir is a really cool commander, and you know, if you're looking for an IA commander that's really cool and focused around tokens, similar to Baylen here, Jetmir is the perfect one. So let's look at the rest of those cards, and there's just 6 here. We have Burrow Guard Mentor, Hour of Reckoning, Impact Tremors, Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, Rite of Harmony, and War Leader's Call. And lastly, as always, we have the good stuff in this deck, and the 3 cards I want to show off are some untap effects and convoke effects I think are really good to have. So we have Drum Bellower, Seedborn Muse, and Wand of the World Soul. So Drum Bellower is 2 in a green creature spirit with flying. Untap all creatures you control during each player's untap step. So similar to Seedborn Muse, but this just untaps your creatures. It's much cheaper, it has flying. It honestly is kind of just better in this deck than Seedborn Muse is, because you're using your creature tokens to activate Baylen's effects. So every turn, draw a bunch of cards, or every turn make some mana to cast some spells in your hand that you just drew. This is a really, really cool card. I don't think I've seen it in a lot of decks. It is kind of expensive at $5. I mean, not too bad, but it's not $1 or whatever. And I think that this really powers up the deck, and any number of these effects you can add are just worth it. So similarly, 3 green creature spirit, untap all permanents you control during each player's untap step. This does also untap your lands. If you got artifacts, it untaps those as well. So you're paying 2 more mana, so you're getting a little bit more value. But if you can get Drum Bellower out there, you can kind of gain so much more advantage on turn 3 that it's going to be well worth it. And then finally, Wand of the World Soul, 2 in a white artifact. Wand of the World Soul enters battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a white, or tap it, and the next spell you cast this turn has Convoke. We don't have too many spells that are too expensive in this deck, but we do have some mass token creation spells which could really benefit from having Convoke added onto them, or just, you know, a couple of spells that are 6-7 mana each. So it would be really great to have those as well. But the rest of the good stuff we got here is Arcane Signet, Beast Within, Birds of Paradise, Burrow's Charm, Chromatic Lantern, Dawn's Truce, Farseek, Phineas, Ace Archer, Heaped Harvest, Auron Frostfang, Path to Exile, Pollen Shield Hair, Skull Clamp, Sky Shroud Claim, Soul Ring, Talisman of Conviction, Talisman of Unity, in the Battle of Baywater. And with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for watching. This has been such a fun video, and like I said, it's probably the last video I'm going to be doing for Bloomburrow. Duskmorn is coming around the corner. We're getting spoilers for that starting August 31st, so I'm so excited to see what we're going to get from this set, and spoilers are starting earlier than they are typically, so very excited to see that. If you would please leave a comment down below, and maybe list a card that you think is worth adding in this deck, or, you know, a card you don't agree with me adding. I would love to hear about it. In addition, if you would please leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe, that would mean the world to me, so thank you, thank you, thank you. In today's Scryfall card of the day is Great Bow Doan. My arrows will ever find you. Thank you so much, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.